And we'll call the Finance Committee to order. Start with a nice-looking sales tax report.
It is. It continues on pretty much from what I can tell on the state trend and all of the public estimations and projections. This falls pretty much in what everybody's seeing, and then on the private side too with the Puget Sound forecaster. Seems to be solid. It's true in almost every category, as you can see, from REIT and collections, real estate excise tax collections, our current expense cash flow. You can see beginning and ending balances are fairly good. So it's pretty much across the board. The one anecdotal comment would be that it was interesting in the last go around for water sewer billing. We probably had more turn-off notices than we'd had for some time. So I don't know what that means.
Wow.
Some people said they were on vacation, which we hadn't heard before, and that type of thing. So I thought that was kind of interesting that we went through that really tough period. People got squared away, and we pretty much had a lesser amount, and now the times are a little bit better. They've kind of gone the other way, at least on those accounts. So I thought that was interesting. I don't have any
It's interesting.
observation of that. So anyway, things are perking right along. I think we see that all across the board.
See, the REIT appears to be slowing. I know it's better than last year, but below the 5-year average, which I think
Well, it's not, though. That's
February.
We're well above, because we're at 355 and we've only got
4 months left.
Well, I understand. I'm just saying in August it was
yeah.
below the 5-year average, better than last year, but below the 5-year average. And all of the months prior, except for February, were above the average, so significantly above. So,
Some of that is, people are, from those earlier pieces, depending on how this is, you've got a lot of activity, so it, is either in the pipeline or times were good and people did their deal.
Well, I think one of the challenges out there right now too is the lack of inventory.
Yeah, on residential property, yeah.
yeah, we heard that from Lennox Scott when Kerry Bozeman invited Lennox Scott from John L. Scott came over and kind of talked about the real estate market in general and specifically related to Kitsap County. And one thing I found kind of interesting is the demand for housing is so great that people now are afraid to list their house for fear that it'll sell quickly and they won't be able to buy a replacement because of the competitive market. So, wow, it's a hot market. So, all right, any questions on that? Treasurer's report.
This is, this format is really what that other sheet that we used for years is the same thing with just the stripped down basic information rather than the inflows and outflows.
Mm-hmm.
So this just pretty much, we stripped it down to your different account numbers, your different fund numbers, of course, and then the description on there explains which, by name, what fund it is, and then we've got our beginning balance and then period amount adjustments, either a positive or negative change in the fund balance, and then you end up with the ending fund balance. So that said, there's Treasurer's report on the cash. General fund is in fairly good shape, historically. And of course, that's going to become your beginning whatever we can have left over will become your beginning fund balance for the biennium. And this year, probably, one of the things that they say to me is that for the biennial budget, we'll have to be really trued up on our beginning cash balance. On an annual budget, it's a little, the dynamics are a little bit different. So what we'll do this year is, I'll go ahead and project the beginning cash balance, which has the 13th month adjusted in it. And then probably in March, I'll come back to the Finance Committee and then to the council and probably do a budget amendment and true up that really true beginning cash balance, rather than just let it ride, so you'll really know where you're at as you manage this over a 2-year biennial budget. Budgets are out to all the department heads, and they really haven't got into a lot of heavy questions yet. Nick seems to be the most progressive on getting it done. Jeff's been on vacation, and Mark's just talking. He's been talking to us about some of the projects. So not a lot to report there yet. The next report is the different various fund balances that are the accounts. So these are you ask about tracking REIT, and that's the current REIT amount now in REIT 1 and 2. REIT 1 will be the one that purchases a building at 720 Prospect, so that amount will come down in REIT 1. And our balance on that's right at 200,000 by the time you take everything else out that we've got against it for the 2016 budget. We'll end up with a little bit more in the REIT 2. So that's the balances there. And then we've got the different...
Is REIT 1 where we took Bethel?
2.
2, that came out of 2.
I'd have to go back and look.
That there was a almost 1.2 million at one point.
Okay.
When I got here, the REIT fund was about 3.2 million. So, we've put that to work. And then we've got the different accounts that are accounts, not necessarily fund. You can see it's in Fund 109, but these are the different accounts that we carry. We've got the McCormick Woods transportation fees that have been collected there. We've got the parks. We've got the McCormick Woods Parks amount. We've got the Bayside plat, which was that plat we took in. Bremerton collected the fees and transferred them to us. And then we've got the transportation impact fee, which went up $70,000 from the payment of St. Vincent de Paul. So the bulk of that money is from really one project. So, those continue to grow, and we'll put those to work mainly on the capital side.
So, Beck, will it be 2018 when we start the next process through PSRC?
Well, I was, I think, confused on that because I thought that 2018 would when we'd be doing that, and I thought that there would be what they call a project selection task force in 2017. I thought it would convene then in preparation for 2018, and I've been informed that this is going to be a 3-year cycle, and so it'll probably be 19. Is that what you've heard, Mark, that you're expecting it, that
Call
we
for
will...
projects.
Call for projects won't be until 2019?
I still think they have a call in 2018 for 2019 funds.
Okay, so that's what we're...
Okay, but I'm...
Which is 3 years.
Yes,
I've
but
got
I'm
the
not
thing.
sure of that.
I've got the thing pinned up on my bulletin board.
I had expected, because I raised my hand to be active in the project selection task force, because I think some things need to be changed in the process, and thought that would happen next year. But they're doing the update to 2040 and the 2040 transportation next year, and that will really drive project selection. And so I'm thinking it's all delayed a year. But
So
we need to confirm that.
Where I'm going with that is that we've got that roundabout being designed.
Correct.
And I think we need to set ourselves up that we're, you know, leveraging these fund balances the best we can and getting, you know, PSR, or excuse me, KRCC funding for that roundabout out there at Anderson Hill and in Clifton. So,
Then you won't be constructing till about 2020, about 2020.
maybe we'll have enough money to do it
To
ourselves.
do it,
but
yeah,
I'm sure
I don't know,
I'm sure
I'm
we'd
just-
like to leverage it and then.
I will
use-
double check those dates.
And use our money for designing the next
Correct.
roundabout or the next
Yeah.
widening
Yeah,
or whatever
yeah.
it is. So-
Bayside goes into that project, doesn't
I
it?
think,
Yeah, Bayside has, that lot's built, I think we've received
Right.
131.
Yeah,
funding from that, and then we have McCormick, it's a McCormick project, so we have that fund.
Yeah.
So we're designing, remember, we're designing 60%
Mhm.
this year, and then doing the final PS&E at this point anticipated next year. And then it's a shelf-ready project.
Who's buying the new guardrail?
The person that was intoxicated whilst driving.
They did no fatality there, was there? It was bad.
Yeah.
No fatality, they've got a police report, so we're
When-
working through our insurance company.
Sunday morning,
Didn't stop at the stop sign, continued on
coming up
straight.
Anderson Hill Road.
We just fixed that guardrail too.
Yeah.
I mean, just
Where
fixed
at?
it.
Coming up
Anderson
Hill.
Hill, Clifton.
Intersection.
Wow.
The
It's-
last one was not bad. This is complete replacement. It's like, it's hanging up in the air
Yeah.
20 feet.
It's bad.
He had to have been doing 70. I mean, literally the car, it was going midair and it took the guardrail with it, and it was crazy.
a couple of items to wrap up the treasurer's report. The Department of Revenue came in and did the leasehold excise tax audit. That's the 12.85% that we collect in payment of in lieu of property tax when we lease out property. Yeah, they were real pleased with the pay. We had the packet all put together. It was they were real pleased. He was the same fellow that was here. Did a real extensive, went through everything in 2010, 2011. Came through and just finished up in a day, so he was real pleased, said that everything was in order.
Update on one of those leases is we had the broker's price opinion done for Ron Ness's. The documents were at his office to be signed, and he passed away, so we don't know whether
They're gonna want that spot.
they're gonna want that spot or not. And I think the lease goes another couple months until it matures, but we are reaching out to him.
The other question that was raised, I think, by John last meeting was, what's the payoff on the water system at McCormick? And it is spoken to in the annual report. It lays out what the note, it's actually a note under leases, and it's laid out there. This is the promissory note, if anybody wants to see what it looks like. But the answer to the question is how many lots yet need to be collected on to pay off the note. The note, as it says there, for the first 550 connections fees, it's $700, and for the last 250 connections fees, it's $225 under the promissory note. Yet to collect for the 700 be 160. Another $112,000 would need to be collected, and then the final 250 would need to be collected. So the remaining connection fees to pay off the full amount outstanding would be 410. And that's where we stand on that. And then the other question that was raised was, how long is the McCormick Woods payback, to pay out what they had done under the, original agreement between the county and McCormick Woods. I've estimated that basically the certified amount was right at $2,276,000,000 was the engineer certification that they would receive a payback on, and we're paying them back at 35% of the fee that we collect out there in that area. So, that said, year-to-date, we've paid back $501,000. There's 2,100 remaining lots, according to the Department of Community Development out there estimated. McCormick's Woods portion of the impact fee now is $2,016. There's an annual COLA increase to that. That would allow the impact fees to collect remaining, it'd be $4,234,000. To get to the 35% to pay them off completely, you'd need to collect $5,071,000. Just an algebra question, of course. So they would end up $836,932 short of having that pay off based on what they were certified, the remaining available lots, and then receiving 35% of those available remaining lots.
Unless
there's
the
your
COLA
answer.
does something wacky to jump that up, but it just gets written off then though, correct?
Well, I'm not the one to answer that. I don't see anything in the contract that leaves the treasurer to do anything but to collect the fee and pay 35% against the engineer certification. That's all the treasurer would have. I don't see any provision that says if that doesn't take place, that there's a further action for the treasurer. Your question would be beyond that.
Beyond the 2,100 lots, they don't have any entitlement to future development.
Under it doesn't appear that the finance department would have any other action beyond that. Once the 2,100 is gone, there's nothing to pay 35% against.
What was the original expense for?
The road that comes off the backside to Glenwood, they built that. It
Oh,
was it was a
okay.
condition of approval for the
Okay.
plat.
Okay.
And they negotiated that with the county
Okay.
and their ILA with the county, that they would build it and then get paid back
Paid back. Okay.
35% of the
Got it.
future impact fees.
Okay.
Another way I could answer that is I don't know what kind of remedy the developer would have if they're not made whole against the city.
And
It would
is-
be their remedy, not our action. So I don't see the city doing anything once it no longer takes place. We're under no obligation if we collect no fees now.
Right.
There's no interest.
Sometimes it's bad math.
That's what I was thinking. We just didn't do the calculation
Well, not
correct.
us.
County
No,
would have been-
no,
they're all-
exactly.
Well,
Would have been developer.
Yeah.
They made the offer.
But maybe that's the best they could negotiate with the
Right.
county
Mhm.
was, we'll get some of this back.
Well, there was a couple things that took place too. One, they didn't know, the project list is much longer than these two. So I don't know what the math would have
Okay.
worked out beyond that.
Right.
Secondly, I don't think that they probably really knew what that project was gonna cost them when they executed the agreement. By the time they got around building it, probably that had changed as well. And then, of course, the volume of payback. So there was probably some assumptions in there that didn't actually come to fruition.
Right, especially through the recession.
Well, and the difference too is they didn't build the road, they couldn't build houses. So they probably made more than the 800,000 they're writing off.
It's just like in this promissory note, I don't know why you'd do $700 in the first 550. And
Right, and then drop it.
I mean, there must have been some logic to it. But I suppose if I was like the 540th, I probably would wait. You know what I mean? I know that's not an incentive to get it done.
Right. Right.
You usually incentivize people to do something, not to wait. But, that's not my deal.
I remember when we bought the system, but I do not remember negotiating that kind of a term. So I know it was just basically, we only made payments based on connections.
Right. Well, there must have been a logic.
Yeah, I'm sure there
I
probably
hope-
was.
I hope. So anyway, that brings you up to date on things that you asked that I had looked at years ago, but hadn't revisited in a while. And then the other one was the salary survey. Deb Howard is on vacation, but she did get a hold of the people that did the salary survey. I think it was in 2007 or so. And they will update it for a smaller, they don't have to go through the full piece. When she gets back, she'll be able to report to us what the gentleman that did the survey is still with the company. She talked to him and said, all I have to do is update it. He just would want an updated org chart. And then once he gets that, he'd go back and see what kind of job descriptions he might want on an individual basis. Probably wouldn't want them all. Might ask for see if there's any changes to see the updated ones. So she'll be back to us with at least a proposal of not doing a full-blown survey, but at least an update of what we had. So that's what I have to report there. I didn't personally talk to the gentleman. She had several conversations. Any questions for the finance department as far as that goes before we move on to transportation?
I don't think so. Questions?
We do have an opening down there, which we've advertised for. I might mention that. Real proud, professionally really proud, personally proud of the staff. Corey Pearson moved up. She was the backup for payroll, and she really earned the position to step up to an accounting 3 from an accounting 2. Both Kathy Kane and Melissa, who's being married, so I don't know her new last name, but anyway, they both applied as well. We interviewed all 3, all capable, all had some payroll background, so we interviewed them. Corey goes into the open position, Kathy goes into Corey's position, who was a backup that was a water storm. We'll move into that lead position, and then Melissa's gonna move up to storm water. And then we'll hire the new entry level front desk, so it really worked out well. Really proud of
Oh, that's
them to
good.
do that, to have that kind of redundancy. So I think it'll work out really well.
Close to interviews again on our IT support position too. So,
Yeah, Cytel's moving pretty long. We're just getting the servers, the hardware for the next piece. Like I mentioned last time, the wireless is all completed. So anyway, we'll do some real heavy lifting in September, October to get this thing wrapped up by the end of the year, but it's moving along.
Did you have good applicants?
Not as strong as last time. I want to say we had about 30 this time versus 70. The goal is to weed it down to 3 or 4. And that's what we did last time. And the date set, I just escapes me off. It's in the next. Deb's on vacation this week. I
Yeah.
think it's next week that we're doing those interviews for the support positions. So that and one opening in the court. So we've got 3 job openings right now. So getting it down from where it was.
Thank you.
Must be something in the water. We're having the same problem in terms of,
Strong economy.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of people retired, so,
Yeah, that's the other thing going on all over.
yeah.
I mean, it's huge.
Huge.
And it's going to, yeah,
For the next 15 years.
yeah.
Yeah,
Every
it's
day.
amazing. It's amazing in my business. What I hear now is you're still here? Or who are you?
All right, let's move on to Mark.
Okay, so I've got, obviously, Tremont to talk about. I do, if time allows, I want to quickly touch base on Bay Street, where we're on that, and then I do have more of an immediate, probably like a decision on DeKalb. So, on Tremont, that will be on the agenda tonight. I think it's important, and it's in the PSRC tracking exemptions request document that I sent over. We're meeting on Wednesday. I didn't have a chance to print out their response comments. I don't know, Beck, did you look
I
at
read
those?
them, yeah.
How, did they change this quite a bit, or?
This is an uphill battle, the leach.
I don't know what,
So I sent this over to them previously.
what I read, her response, that email that she sent, that attachment, and basically, her concern is, council said we would bond all of it. Why are we now,
We haven't gotten to that point yet.
right, but because in all of it, we have said, for the remaining funds, council will bond.
Right.
But, nowhere in there did we ever say we were gonna bond 100% of the project, and
Well,
so in
well,
some
it's-
of the documentation, we've said the bond will be greater than we anticipated,
Well-
and she's not buying that piece.
Well, can we back up just a minute?
Yeah.
Mhm.
This is on the amount for the bid documents, is that right?
This is,
Yeah.
right, and
So the bid documents, there was a price set in the original Berger ABAM estimate of costs of $18 million is a line item that anticipated these costs.
Yes.
yes, for the
Okay, so-
construction administration, so.
Right. So within that column is this cost within that $18 million. This isn't over and above. This is, if you'd already identified your $18 million, you would be paying this quarter, this $250,000 for these documents at some point as part of the cost of the project.
Right, and so this.
Yeah, but that's not the issue.
I know
Yeah.
that, but people need, I believe.
Oh,
that
people need to understand
People
that,
need to
yeah,
understand
okay.
that
This is
isn't-
not new,
You're right. I mean, anybody, and even this person that's making her argument, this isn't over and above. This is within that framework of we were gonna bond a portion, get a certain amount of grants, and build the project.
right,
So it's already embedded in there.
Right.
That was my
right.
point.
It's a timing issue.
Exactly.
The whole thing is a timing issue. In order to meet the escalated time for TIB's rapid action
Right,
program.
and I didn't put in my reasons, I didn't use that, it was more than, I was careful not to do that.
Right, the other thing that she questioned is because one of the reasons you indicated, and I didn't read your application, but one of the things she said was that you indicated that we had to redo the stormwater piece because of the changes
Mhm.
in the permit. And she wanted to know why that wasn't, when we became aware of that.
Just recently. I
And,
mean, just within weeks.
okay, that was her other question, is when did we become aware of that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we became aware this summer when we were getting ready to go through this final
Right.
portion, this push. So let me back up a little bit. So this is going to lead to a larger question that I think PSRC needs to discuss. And that is, there's a catch-22 that's just exacerbated by the TIB PSRC 6-month application shift. The issue is that you get money for PE, you do your design, you get money for right-of-way, you do your right-of-way. You get your design drawings are as far as you can go. WashDOT will not look at those drawings until you have obligated or been awarded your construction money. So what happens is, and I'll use Tremont as the perfect example, we finished our design up to, I'll say 98% in 2013. We had all of our acquisitions done. WashDOT comes in and does a audit of our file. They reviewed the complete 33 transactions. I have a letter from Paul Levgren that says, you're ready to go. As soon as you are awarded your construction money, you will receive your certification. But that's contingent on construction money. And then you have your NEPA, your environmental ECS, that is approved and it's sitting there hovering. And then you have your temporary construction easements that you have to renew every 5 years. And so you end up with this situation where the plans are done, but WashDOT won't look at them. The right-of-way's done, but WashDOT won't certify it. In the environmental, you have to keep that plate spinning until you secure your construction funding. As soon as you get your money awarded, then WashDOT will review your plans. And what I think needs to be discussed at PSRC is, as part of that construction funding, there should be an ability in your engineer's estimate for your construction. You got your construction, because you can have within your construction, you can have construction and management, construction administration. To me, going from 95, 98% approved plans to submitting to WashDOT, because they won't look at it until after you have your money awarded for construction, should be a function of the CACM. And I'm going to ask Beth that sponsor that conversation, because I can't believe that nobody else is having this issue.
There's many, that's why I said earlier that I wanted to be on this project selection task force. There were many things in this last cycle that truly influenced our Tremont. One was when, again, regional money, there was an award for a Kitsap County jurisdiction that had partnered with WSDOT. And when they got their award, PSRC broke that apart, and the Kitsap County jurisdiction got their money. WSDOT was put on the contingency list.
Right, but the Kitsap County project didn't lose points.
That's the issue. The only reason they scored well was because of the WSDOT piece.
Right.
And so that's something that has to be looked at. I mean, because this can happen in the future to other jurisdictions.
Right.
So, there are other things, and the way the rules are now at PSRC, when we were awarded the right-of-way piece, and I don't know when that was.
2008.
2008, when we were awarded the funds for the right-of-way piece, we estimated what that was going to cost. That's what we got, okay? But this $350,000 is left over,
Right.
okay? And now what we're doing is we're asking to use those funds for these additional design work that we have to do.
Right.
But
Which isn't looked, at PSRC isn't looked upon favorably.
Because
in their
it's-
big circle, they look at it as going backwards.
But no, what
But
they're
it's-
looking
but
at.
we're really not.
The award was for right-of-way acquisition. It wasn't for planning, it was not for construction, it was for right-of-way. That phase is now done. So they believe that that money should go back.
Well, right, and that's another thing.
Because, see, we can't even, it's going to, regardless, if we can't use it for P&E now, we don't even know if we're going to be able to use it for construction. And then that money would go back to KRC. This is where I'm having heartburn with the whole thing. It goes back to KRCC, and then it would either go into our next pot of money, or it would be applied against something against the contingency list.
Right.
And we were not allowed to put Tremont on the contingency list because it was completely funded, because we said we would bond. So people
And
that
that's
are...
the only way they would allow our
That
application.
is correct. That is correct. So what we have now is this money that we're working so hard to complete Tremont and not have access to money that we had originally been awarded. It would go back, and I submit that other jurisdictions within Kitsap will benefit from that.
Well, and that's
Yes.
what's problematic, is instead of getting support, now you have, I mean, it even happened at the RPEC meeting,
Yep.
when somebody said, is Port Orchard gonna give back 3 million, is that on the table? And I was like, no, you're like vultures circling a body. It's like, no, we're not there. So, you know, erase that from your brains. So they're just very coarse and
there may be,
Because of these politics,
Correct.
we have to assume we're not gonna get, we're pursuing this transfer. Because of all of these politics and rules, we may not be able to transfer from one phase to the other. We need to be prepared that we're gonna have to fund this. Administratively, we can move 50 of it. Okay, and Mark's negotiated it down to 250, correct?
well,
250,
it went from 3 something to 279.
okay.
50 of it is administrative, but we got to remember there's
You
an
get that-
86 and a half,
yeah.
13 and a half split. So we're really talking about moving 241, and the city would have to, 279 is the total amount. So 50 of it is administrative, but that 50 still has a
Yes.
split.
right.
So, you know, we get the TIB grant, it becomes part of the 18 million. We're gonna put it, you know,
It's
put a
cash.
reimbursement agreement to it. We complete the project, we could get funded, you know, it could get paid back that way. But ultimately, if we, you know, heaven forbid, we strike out at TIB, we need to be prepared to pay this 200,000 and
Well,
change.
Well,
But
ourselves.
it's part of, when we have talked this whole time, I didn't realize that there was what I'm gonna call change on the table. And when we've been talking that we have to pay back this 3 million, I knew it was 3.2, and that 300 is part of that 3.2.
Yes.
In my mind, because I never thought it was 2.9. I always thought it was 3.2. To me, it's not,
Yeah.
I had always been adjusted to that. Yeah.
So let me, so the main.
I want to just interject something for the other council members. Mark and I sat here the day we did the interview for the
CAC.
the construction phase, and before the candidates came in, the representative from local programs, Shelley?
Stacy Kelsey.
Stacy was here, and she told Mark, you can use that money for that. I heard her say that no less than 2 times. So Mark went into all of this with local programs telling him he could use this money for that, and that it was just a matter of making PSRC see the light. She later recanted that. So you told me she recanted it.
Yeah, she said, hey, I misspoke. You
She
can only do
misspoke,
the 50.
so I want everyone to know that Mark went into this, and I heard the conversation, fully believing that this money was easily
Within their
transferred.
control.
Correct.
When she came back and said, no, it's under PSRC's control, I instantly went, well, knowing that dealing with PSRC is like playing Donkey Kong, where they're just throwing barrels at you at every turn. So, but I do want to get back to quickly, it's important that we understand that the 2 things that did change, because we were ready in 2013. The 2 things that changed were, as Beck mentioned, the WashDOT is now under an NPDES permit. And so our design in 2013 had our westerly drainage system, because Tremont has no drainage in it. So we're putting in a vault and an outfall. We were connecting to their overpass drainage system, which they have a pipe under the overpass that goes to the wetland to the west. Well, that's an existing 12-inch CMP pipe. We know that it doesn't have capacity. We were working with WashDOT originally to try to just upsize that pipe. Well, because of their NPDES permit, they're just saying, don't connect to our pipe. So it's this whole MS4 mentality that we don't want to deal with your water, don't connect to our pipe. So we're having to run a pipe under the overpass, which isn't a big deal. There's no utilities there, but you have to do surveying. You have to change the plan, you have to change the report. But the biggest domino that falls is because we're discharging next to the state's pipe. For those of us who are old enough to remember, that entire interchange is built in a wetland. All four corners of that are a wetland. So now we have to do a wetlands report. We have to delineate it. And it's a big wetland. And so the main cost of this $279,000 is to revise the APE, air potential effect, because it's grown, expand the wetland analysis, rewrite that. It has to do with this change where WashDOT says, no, don't connect to our pipe, discharge next to our pipe. Seems pretty, minimal until the dominoes start going. So that was the one thing, that's what changed. And we didn't know that until this summer, when we were getting the proposals to just get to this final 5%. Our Ross Widener, our environmental consultant, said, we got a problem. So that was that. The other issue was the TIB money that requires a constructability VE having to occur as part of their funding program. And when you match that with their rapid action requirement that says you need to be awarded by May 1st at the latest. And whether TIB is gonna, because they usually give out $2 and $3 million. $8 million is a stretch. And the rapid action program is that stretch, and it's kind of what Alan talks about. It's putting people to work, it's getting asphalt on the ground, it's getting things built. And I believe TIB wants to move into, well, they've told me, they want to move into larger projects from a legislative support standpoint. So Tremont will help them as much as they're helping us move into that larger project. But the only way that we can get that kind of money is if we're in this rapid action program. So I worked with Stacy, local programs, and we looked at mid-April, and we worked backwards through their review process, obligating the money, approving the plans, going to award. It basically said, we have to have the PS&E ad ready by December 31st. And so that's really what's driving this whole thing. It's that ad ready date. And so instead of doing what we had originally hoped, which was to do the 95% as part of the CACM with our share, because again, we have 13.5% of that value. We could have used that portion for that. But because we're doing it, it's a timing thing, because we're having to do it now, we need to fund it. So we're either gonna fund it out of pocket, we're gonna fund it through this transfer of the money that we were awarded, and we were expeditious on not spending all of it and being penalized for it now. Or we'll realize the savings, because you remember that our $18 million is the total construction, includes the CACM, includes engineering support, and so that's, and it's got a contingency on the whole thing, like a 15% contingency. So we don't know what the bids are actually, the actual bids where they come in. The CACM is a percentage of that based on the contractor's estimate of time. So if it turns out to be an 18-month instead of a 24-month construction period, the CACM goes down by 6 months worth of daily effort. So that's kind of a moving target. But I want to make sure that everybody understands that it's really the drainage issues and the rapid action that have prompted this whole thing. Because I know that there's some people in the community, because this has already gone out to the chairs, because I've already gotten a call. I got a good call, a nice call from Barry Lovelace. He wanted to understand it so that he could talk to his people. Fred Salisbury's reached out to help, to say, oh, I understand.
I was going to say, I was wondering where our support was, because it goes to RPEC and county chairs.
Yeah, it went to so they've already heard about the application, so Barry wanted to understand it so that he could explain it to his electeds. And he completely understood. He said, wow, anybody could fall into that. I'm like, exactly. And we've got the money. So, so yeah, to some degree, this is like a blank check. I don't know if we're going to realize the savings in 2017, or if the bidding climate, if oil goes up and, somebody blows something up in the Middle East and suddenly we don't get a good bid because oil prices go up. I don't know. But
Bottom line is Alan said, this is not money that we had not already budgeted for or have it. It's already included in the numbers we're looking at. It's just a timing. And my particular concern, as I had had communication with Alan was cash flow. How do we cash flow it right now? Because it can be reimbursed on the other side. Even if PSRC allows us to transfer it, it's still a reimbursable activity. So we have to be able to cash.
And we're still gonna
flow
have to pay the 13.5%
Yeah.
anyway. So, anyway, so that's the Tremont deal. We're meeting tomorrow at 9 to talk to Kelly. I'll answer her questions, and I'm assuming, so in my email, I'm assuming I'll be going to the September 8th TPB, but the executive board, they're just saying yay or nay on the recommendation, right?
What I would recommend for the Hall is, again, during citizen comments at the beginning, you can speak. The city of Kent brought a timing extension they needed for one of their projects forward last year. I was in the audience, I wasn't at the table. And both their city engineer and their mayor spoke to this project. So,
I cleared my calendar.
yeah, so you can also check.
Mark and I will be over there.
And
Yeah.
check with Kelly to make sure that's still appropriate, because that's what, but for.
I'm on the executive board is the ultimate decision. I'm an alternate.
Alternate.
I plan on sitting at the table that day. I don't have a vote, but if there was a question, I could speak to it from the
What
from
I
the
was gonna
table.
say is we can also talk to, Rob Gelter represents Kitsap on Transpol, and Dino Davis represents Bremerton on Transpol, and Becky Erickson represents Transit and is the vice chair at Transpol. So we can have conversations with those people prior to
I've already talked to Becky.
the
I'll talk to
Transpol
Dino
meetings. And then the other city's representative is me. So I know how I'm voting.
Well, the other
I'll-
issue though
You'll see
is,
those other two too.
the other issue is still gonna be, unfortunately,
Getting it
politics as it is,
right.
there may be some people that are gonna be voting because they want us to fail, because they know that they're gonna benefit potentially. And I think that's one of the things that needs to be discussed. If you've saved money in PE, you should be able to automatically roll it into right-of-way. And if you save money in right-of-way, you should be able to roll it forward to construction. Rolling forward should just be easy. I
You
could
know, if
see.
this was under the FTA rules, you could do that in a heartbeat.
Right. There's a-
FTA is just, you can change it. You know, so-
Now,
As
how
long as
about-
it doesn't exceed the total dollar.
How about moving back?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, there's just, if you're trying to manage, I mean, again, I use the Donkey Kong thing, but that's what it really feels like. It's like we get up to the next level, and then here comes another barrel. It's like, seriously? You know, it's like that scene out of Saving Private Ryan where he's trying to help his buddy, and he's like, give us a break, you know? Stop shooting at me. It just is constant. They just like keep, oh, we made this hurdle. Well, you got this thing now to deal with. They just make it so difficult. And again, I've said this, but when we do any large project like Bethel Corridor, there's no way that I'm going to recommend taking a federal dollar until we've had it designed and we've acquired right away. Now that puts more of a burden on the city, that you're just, unless we do tiny little federal projects where we want to go ahead and do design and right away and construction, and it's very finite.
We
Right.
have seen, I will say this, we have seen both in the countywide and the regional, a lot of the asks are for the entire project. They're for P&E right away and construction. You know, they come in that
Well, you
way.
can do PE. Well, you can do PE plus one.
So
So
maybe it's not right
that's
away.
if
I'm
you-
thinking
right.
of like Knoll Road in Paulsbo.
Right, you can do what they call PE plus one. You can't fund all three phases. So you can only do a PE in construction
Okay.
if there's no right of way.
I've got a question. Let's say that we don't prevail in the rapid action, but the project really would not fall under WASDOT's response until really September of 2018. So they-
September of 2018.
Right, so they would continue to, did I say September?
Mhm.
So they would continue to allow the city to pursue what means it may have to construct the project.
Absolutely.
How long are this body of work good for?
I would say if we go through this update, we're good well beyond 2018, because then, as part of this, the NEPA is gonna be amended again. Right-of-way certification is still sitting, and now we're up to 99.9% plans. We still have to submit to WashDOT. There'd be, a simple edit of if the WashDOT specs change again, because they change every 1 or 2 years. So we may have to go through, and instead of being 2017, which will be the new spec year, and having to go through and see what the edits
The
were.
bid process that we would have to, but we wouldn't, if we don't get the award, we're not gonna finish this contract and go to bid.
We
So
shouldn't have the VE will be done, and the stormwater piece, the
Will be
two
done.
expensive pieces
Pieces.
will be done. It would just be updating. What my question
Well,
is.
my question was, how much would it cost to re-up these documents?
Correct.
Well, that's what we're when we go through this.
If we don't get the rapid action, would there be a cost to redo these over the next 12 months?
No,
The only expense would be the going to bid.
right.
Because we won't go to bid, we'll stop this 270, we'll spend, grabbing numbers here, 200 of it, and we'd stop. Because we didn't get the award and we're not gonna go to bid. So the part we won't have done is going to bid and the expense of
Well, we'll spend the
ad
full,
ready.
We'll spend the full 279, which, by the way, includes a $20,000 management reserve fee. So that's built into these contracts.
But we wouldn't go to bid.
No, you're not going to go to bid.
To me,
But
what
you're gonna
the,
draw the bid, you're saying, in layman's terms, you're going to put together the bid documents though.
We're going to have we have to have ad ready done. So this proposal from
So-
Berger ABAM is to get us
But
to ad
that's
ready.
So
yeah.
that'd be the expense
I mean,
we
yes
have
or
to
no?
replace.
Is actually going to ad, which is basically de minimis, because you're just uploading to the Builders Exchange, answering some questions. So there's that bid process of receiving the bids. But again, that's all CACM funding.
what the real question in my mind
Reimbursable.
is, we were told by TIB that their average award is $3.5 million, and that they have, I don't want to say regularly, but it's not totally uncommon for them to do a $6 million award. But they have never done anything to the $8 million extent. And it was TIB that came back and said, if we can do if you can be ready for rapid action, we can look at this $8 million ask. Okay. My question to the city is if they say, we want to do this, but we can only give you $6 million, that our group thinks that is the upper limit that we can award, can the city bond the $10 million? Because then we'd be looking at bonding 10.3 instead of 8.3.
I guess-
To me, the question is, where's our,
Where's the limit?
what's our limit? Because that's the
I don't
question.
think we don't have that conversation until we know. I don't want to go into that application with them thinking that we're comfortable bonding $10 million.
No, I
don't think
understand.
we
I
are.
understand, but that's exactly where Kelly's coming from. Kelly thinks that we're willing to bid the 18 mil, or bond the 18, because we said that we would bond the difference.
Yeah, we had to do the application that way
Right.
because of the lag. If TIB, again, the 6 month, that's another thing to talk about at some point with PSRC,
Mhm.
is, that 6 month lag is huge. Because then you have an application for the regional or the countywide, where you think you're gonna get money out of TIB, but you don't, so your application has to have you have to be fully funded. That's probably the biggest difference since I
Yeah,
came here
you
in
have to be
2008.
fully funded.
You have to be fully funded in your application. So that says, okay, countywide, I'm asking for 3. My application shows 15 million that the city's gonna pay for. For the regional, we asked for 8. It said that we were gonna get 10 from the city. On those separate applications, and then on TIB, all it's showing is that we have 1.7. We're asking for 8, and then the city is taking 8.3. So to some degree, you're plugging in numbers to be whole.
And that's the
But
piece
they're all
that Kelly needs to
independent.
understand, is the city is committed to the difference, but we had certain expectations.
This isn't anything, she's making an issue out of something that isn't an issue, just because she doesn't understand it, and that's what the meeting's about. So we'll get there.
Well, let me ask a question on this effort now, which will bring us all the way up to the bid. Will that do anything to the clock?
No.
So it's not that we're having progress on this project, so it resets the clock?
No, there's, the only thing that will satisfy our current clock is obligating the construction funds prior to September 2018.
This rapid action will do that, because
Well,
we'll be in
I was
construction next
following
year.
up on Alan's comments of if we don't get the rapid action and we have already spent this money to bring us up to add, will that do anything to the clock? And what I heard was no.
No, at this point, we would simply be looking at other funding sources, working through our lobbyists, and we would have in essence a year to come up with enough additional money to cut into the, in essence, $16 million bond. But that's a question for later. So anyway, yeah, it's very frustrating, but again, since 2005, the landscape's changed considerably, and even in this last year or so, they continue to just make things more difficult. So,
And as you know, this is, if you read your packet, this item is on tonight's agenda for us to meet these deadlines that we're progressing on.
On Bay Street, the only thing I want to mention on that is, so on tonight's agenda, we have the proposal to get the segment 3, because we have the 3.5 million that is a state grant. We were able to move 500 of it into
This biennium.
in advance of, it's actually, we had 3.5, we know that now 3 million is in the 1921 biennium, and that money's not there yet. Rob and our lobbyists were able to move 500 in advance, and how that's split currently is that I had estimated 60 for 2016, because that's the 15-16 budget, and then the other 440 was going to be in the 17-19 budget to be spent in 17. So how that's shaking out now is really that 60 is only going to be 20. And then, so I'll be working with local programs to then just have it as 480 in this next budget. That would just be all for construction. The only thing that I'm needing to confirm as I submit a supplement is in the award letter from the state, it just said, it talked about the 216 available funding is the 500,000. So they moved full 500, so we'll split that. But it talks about the lag manual, and that this money, even though it's state money, usually state money is managed by the Department of Commerce, this is actually being managed by local programs. So it was just one of those, I woke up this morning, Di woke me up this morning at 4:30, and it just kind of popped in that I hope there's not a 86.5% split on this, because local programs is managing it, and if they manage it like they manage all contracts, their supplemental agreements are all these forms.
That's
that-
probably because it came out of the transportation budget
It came out of the
and
transportation.
didn't come out of
Right.
the capital budget.
Right, but if I get one of these from Mark Brooks, that has the 86.5, 13.5 split. So I just put a note. I just need to
do that enabling legislation and look at the defined terms of how they that was decided, however that was worded.
Yeah, I just need to verify that, because that'll be a 13.5% hit that we're not anticipating. I'm not saying we wouldn't still be very grateful for getting the 3.5 million, it just means that we have to have,
Plan differently.
right,
Once more, we hit our piggy bank.
that's $472,000. So, you know, so I need to confirm that.
But on the other hand, what I'm gonna speak to that is 13.5% out of our pocket for this wonderful path is not,
We hope it's not true, though.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I'm just
It's not a
being,
showstopper by any means,
Yeah.
but it's still like,
Yeah.
what else? Like
Right.
about the barrels
Yeah.
getting thrown at you.
Throw another barrel at us.
That's right.
yeah, I'm just being transparent that it just dawned on me that I hope that they're not managing it like they manage it, because they'll say, well, where's your 13.5%? The last
You guys'
item.
basic skills are, but I'd start working on them.
That's right.
So last item is, which isn't transportation, but it's public works related project, capital project, is an issue we have at DeKalb Pier, but I did some number crunching, that's why I wasn't paying 100% attention earlier. I don't think it's as bad as we think. So the issue we have at the DeKalb Pier, and that's
You're seeing segment
we can
2 of the
watch it.
catwalk sitting right there,
Yeah.
and it should be attached.
over the weekend, all 3 sections of the catwalk should have been in place, and they should have been driving the receiving float. The receiving float's there. The piling's on the barge. We should have actually had the gangway properly in place. The issue that arose is when, and there's a little bit of, I don't want to say error, but there was assumptions made by the contractor that everything was true and plumb when he drove his pile.
Because this is an erector set, and it's all
And so when the
pieces coming together.
so when the so instead of, you know, you can always second guess. If the contractor had removed the grading on the pier first and inspected where they were going to make their connection with this channel system that bolts onto that pier that then the catwalk rests on, there would have been an adjustment made there, because they would have realized that the 2-end pile, that the easterly pile over time, over the last 30 years or whatever, has rotated, leaned back due to wave action on the floats and the piling, and has just pushed this one back like that. Well, you got on top of the pile, you've got the bend. And so it's, instead of being plumb and square, straight out, it's rotated and tipping back. So last week, they gave us a proposal estimate, because they had to straighten that out. They had to jack it into place, they had to block it. And so they, you know, those guys spend $8,000 a day with their equipment and their manpower. They're, you know, so it's an expensive operation. So, well, we had to do it. So, knowing that the contract was, when we approved the contract, it was $788,993.52, and it was $20,000 over what we budgeted. And then the council, I asked for an additional $20,000. So we have $40,000, you know, $20,000 to cover the contract. So we had an additional $20,000 in reserve. So they did that work, but the contractor, and again, if he had done that first, then he would have driven the pile consistent with that. But because he drove the pile based on the surveyed line coming off from the grading coming out forward, when that rotated back and he had his, when they set that first gangway, obviously it's straight, but it's too long. We're not talking much, we're talking, I don't know, 9 inches or something. So
Better than
the
short.
good news is it's not short. The bad news is that matches up perfectly. And so if we were to hook the gangway that's there to where the new position is, it now puts, instead of at each pile, this gangway connection being like right dead center, it's forward. And so the decision is that, structurally sound to do that? Well, no, you need to have those gangway pieces sitting right on that pile cap evenly. And so you take the difference on the pier side. But the problem with that is they're saying that that's going to be another $8,000 on top of the 16 that they already spent, that I've already authorized. So but in looking in the numbers, here's really as it shakes down, and so I'm going to ask an opinion. So they have the 788, 993.52. We already issued a change order out of the gate for a credit back to us for $5,400, and it wasn't the aluminum to steel, it was the electrical. We went with a different lighting system that saved us $5,000. Then we had change order 2, which was the work that they did last week to straighten everything up. And then change order 3 will be this additional, adjustment, cutting off, modifying that
Receiving point.
receiving point and catwalk 1. So if you look at the total contract with all 3 change orders, the total contract amount to date is $808,803.39. What the council approved that night with the 20 and the 20 is $808,993.52. So technically, we're still $190 in the black. So here's my question. If we're still within the budget authority, and we're still, depending on how you, and I asked Rob this question yesterday, and I'm not trying to be disingenuous, I'm just asking the question, is that I have a $15,000 change order authority, which I'm assuming is 15 additional dollars, and the mayor has $25,000 additional.
So now we've got another 40.
If you have, even though we added 40, but that was still budget authority that was allowed.
Mhm.
So because of the credit, we're either saying that we're now $19,809.87 over
The original bid.
original contract, or we're $25,244.87. Either way, we're still within the budget authority. The reason I'm asking this is because if we don't account for the credit, so that because we went down, you have more to climb back up. If it's 19, Rob can do that immediately and keep the project moving. If not, based on our policies, anything over 25,000 requires going to council. So we would have to either do it as an item tonight for the additional $244.87.
I would say you could take advantage of the credit that you had. I mean, it's the project that we're looking at, so I think it's within his authority.
Right. I'm just asking the question because, again, I
So
want to be
I-
transparent.
And you're not asking to go over the previously approved council budget amount?
No.
What the question becomes is additional expenses. What else might pop up? Because now we don't have a
Well,
contingency.
okay, so
Well, if
here's,
it comes up beyond his authority,
Then-
Then we have to come back.
the next time we have to come
Well,
back.
or if you go over the budget, you gotta come back.
Right, so right now,
Yeah.
so here's the reality.
They've spent it all.
Yeah, we've
With $100.
shot our wad. We've got 190 left. But the good news is we've corrected the pier. They make this adjustment. Now catwalks 1, 2, and 3 go into place. And at this point, all they're doing now is driving, piling. All the floats are ready. The gangway have been sitting in the lots for a week. Our piling the pile that we've driven has already indicated that we don't have piling depth problems in the area. We don't anticipate, well, never say never when you drive something in the ground. But when they drove the initial piling, they drove them to depth.
you got solid ground sooner than you anticipated.
Well, they drove them to depth, and at first they didn't think they were going to pass. And the contractor was eager to, well, let's add another 30 feet and drive it in further. Because we had 80-foot piling. They had cut them to 30 and 50 just because of water depth and the size of their crane. So they spliced it, which doesn't have a structural integrity issue. They cut them just so that they could drive them.
Manage easier.
So once they sat for a week and they came back and then they did the hammer test on those piling, it's just with liquefaction, once all the soils stopped being disturbed and the molecules settled out, it was twice the capacity. So, we've got twice the design capacity of what we've driven so far. We don't anticipate any issue moving forward on that.
Neither does a treasure.
So,
Okay, so
Neither
we got an
does the
opinion,
council.
we got an opinion from the council then.
That's right.
Let's keep them moving and.
Well, that's my opinion. I don't know if you guys would
No,
agree,
I
but I mean, if
think
you
it
get,
makes sense.
if you somehow earned a credit by a change, it's part of the total project, you should be able to take advantage of it.
The only other question I would have is, should there be a conversation with the contractor to perhaps participate in?
oh, well,
This-
yes.
We had that conversation yesterday.
And I'm still having that conversation. I basically
You
said,
you gave us a fix that had other unintended consequences. Come on.
Claim
You know.
you should have caught that one.
Yeah.
well, and, Rob and I talked about that yesterday.
Measure twice, cut once.
Yeah, but again, it was one of those things, it's not like as you go out there, you can see it. When we did our pile evaluation, we are evaluating, the life of the existing piling. And then they have that new grading over it. Yeah, he should have verified that, but he didn't. So that's the conversation I'm gonna have, and I'm gonna try to get this number down. But at this point, the main thing is I wanna know that I can move ahead, negotiate that number down, and still have something to take to the treasurer as opposed to going to council.
Right.
Because we're still, under total budget.
Right.
But anything moving forward, we're now maxed out. I need the contractor to know that as well.
I need 1 minute. So I got an item, fire ILA, the fire district is still working on, I should have that, I hope soon. We talked about on these larger systems, contracting with the county potentially, because Fire District 7's person doesn't have the skill sets for that. So we're talking a little bit in Les Schwab, a new high school gets built, a large apartment complex, that we would either have a contract or an ILA with the county, and the county would do those reviews. They said Dave Lyman got back to me, $75 an hour for that review, and they believe on average those projects would be 4.5 hours worth of work. So you're looking at less than $350. I would like to have that be a pass-through fee, that we're gonna, it's $75 an hour for your project, for a large developer. They brought that in, and the county is gonna review those plans and specs to make sure that it meets fire code. So I just wanna kind of get, consensus that you guys, as I continue, before we draft an ILA with the county. But I reached out to somebody in the private sector. They said that's a good deal. They consider it for about $125 an hour. And then the problem with having somebody in the private sector, then you have fewer people that can bid the work. So I think it's a good way to look at it with the county.
Did we finish, or are we still negotiating with the police department?
I think you'll hear that tonight.
Not soon.
So that's not done?
Real, it appears to be
I didn't
coming
miss it,
near
is the
end.
question.
You've missed it. You haven't missed it. I don't believe we're ready for
Well,
to
that took
take
a
action
bit-
tonight.
that took-
I can say that the treasurer responded to, replied back through our attorney on a review of a proposal.
That we'll be bringing forward back, I would believe. There's no reason to bring it back for 2 weeks, because we wouldn't take action at a work study.
Okay. Anything further good for the org?
Schedule next meeting?
Next meeting. 27th? Do these work?
Yeah, is that the same day as our council meeting?
Uh-huh.
Tuesday.
Yeah, that works fine for me.
The workshop?
Yeah.
I'm gonna be out of town, but you guys can have a meeting without me, I think.
Sounds like we're gonna have an evening meeting without you two.
It appears so. It is my birthday though,
Okay.
if you care.
Are you hinting for a card or a present or a cake or
Whatever,
something?
whatever you feel is appropriate, but I.
Well, I think we should probably have a piece of cake.
Whether he's here or
Yeah.
not, that's right.
Until